Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. Good morning. Welcome to Remine 102. We are 16 days away from the end of the year, which means that we're 16 days away from rDocs going away completely forever and all time. And so there's a couple of things that I want to show you just as some last minute housekeeping that you can do in rDocs to get some information out of there, and also to make sure that you know where to browse to find anything that's been ratified for your previous tiles that were in rDocs, and how you're going to be able to still use that information in Remine. So I'm going to share my screen with you and get started. And today we're going to be impersonating Susan Reno. She's so excited about that, I'm sure. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to go right into rDocs, and I'm going to start with this. You can export your information, your contact information, and the labels from your previously created tiles in rDocs prior to the end of the year. And this is something that some of you may find helpful, because it is just another way that you can say, okay, these are all of the files that I had in rDocs. I just want to make sure that I have all this information. I want to make sure that I have all of these contacts in my database. And this is kind of an easy way to create a report that you can either upload into a CRM or even use just to cross-reference a report that you already have, so that you're not letting anyone fall through the cracks. So when you get typically into your rDocs screen, what you usually see is the tile view. The tile view is where you see all of these little squares, and that's the default. So when you get into your rDocs, that's what you're going to see initially. But if you switch it to the list view, then you'll see that everything populates like this, and you can see all of the information at a glance. You can also, and I don't know, it's a little late in the game to be learning tips in rDocs, but I'm going to show you this anyway. You can also use these headers to toggle how you see the information once you're in this view. So if you are more interested in seeing your primary contacts grouped together, you can sort by primary contact. If it's more important to you to sort by the property address so that you know everything that happened to that property over the course of your transaction history, you can sort either way. For our purposes today, I am going to sort this information by the primary contact, and I'll tell you why. I want to keep up with the person. I want to keep up with these people. And I want to know, these are all of the transactions that I had with this person, and I know that this is where they actually live now. And the creation date for the rDoc tile is also another column that's going to be in the screen. And so you'll still be able to see where your most recent history occurs with this client. So once you're on this screen, you can tell the system how many files you want to see at a glance. I like to see as many as possible, so I always sort it to 100. It defaults to 15, but that just seems like you don't get to see enough of the information that way. And then once you're on this view, you'll notice that there's a new icon that's going to pop up here for you, and this is the export button. And what you're going to do is you're just going to click this button once you have, and you can go ahead and you can select all of the tiles. Click this export button, and I don't know if you can see this over here, but what has happened is I have just dropped a little .csv file right here onto my download tray. You can click this up arrow and right click on Show in Folder, browse right to it, and this is a CSV file that's now downloaded onto your computer. So you can right click on it, open it up with whatever Excel or processing program you like to use. Some people like the Google Docs, and you can open it with Google Docs, or you can just open it with Excel. And now you have a nice Excel spreadsheet, and let's take a look at this and just even see what the information looks like. And spread it out a little bit, maybe not quite so much. And you can see what type this person was, whether they were a buyer, whether they were a seller. It's also going to help you to, and you are the agent and you will always be the agent on the file. And so you can even just go ahead once you get these out exported and delete this column. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to see what you're working with. Okay, so now what you have is a nice spreadsheet that has all of this customer information on it, and it's only going to export as much as you initially put in. So if you were just trying to quickly get a seller's property disclosure statement into FMLS and you just dashed off the address real quick, that may be all that's there. Maybe you were just trying to do a quick buyer brokerage agreement for someone and you just put a name in. That will, again, be all of the information that's there. But it's going to leave blanks for anything that is not completed. So you have this, and you can even, if you cared to, import this into your Booge CRM. You could import this into your Remine contact list. There's a lot of things you could do with this information. More than anything else, it's just going to sort of be handy to have as a reference. I'm going to minimize this. And then let's go back and get into Remine. In addition to exporting the information, just the contact information from those old tiles, you can also access any forms that have been ratified in rDocs right in Remine. You don't have to export them. You don't have to do anything additional. They're already in there, and I'm just going to show you how to get there. So we're going to go to Products. I'm going to go right here to my Remine button. Get to the main Remine dashboard. And then again, there are a couple of different ways that you can get into Docs Plus. You can either use the Rubik's Cube menu. They now also have it right here on the sidebar menu. I'm going to just click on the sidebar for the shortcut and open up Remine Docs Plus. And we are going to impersonate Susan today. And thank you very much, Susan, for allowing us to get in and tinker a little bit. We're very excited. So once you are in an actual transaction, and I'm going to click on My Transactions over here, and she's got a couple in here that are going. Sandy, what are we going to be working in? Which of these files do you want me to browse to today? Because I want to work in the same one that you're going to be working in. And you can unmute yourself and just let me know. And if you'd unmute yourself, Sandy.
Sorry, wrong button there.
Okay.
Yeah, primarily I think we're going to be in the Kevin Gauze now. He's going to be our kind of go-to person today.
Okay, so this is going to be our little guinea pig file. Is this one down here?
Yeah, that's a current active account.
Okay, I promise I won't do anything that is undoable. So I'm going to click on this. And again, what we're looking for is how do I access the information that I used to have in rDocs now that I'm using Remine?
I have one quick question though, Alexa. Are all of our current files that are in rDocs supposed to have been transferred over to Remine? Because I've got two of mine that I do not have in Remine. Am I going to have to manually enter them?
You will have to manually enter them if you don't see them. Have you've
Okay.
been to the legacy button and you don't see information that you're looking for? Is that correct? Okay.
No, where's legacy button? Where's
Okay,
that?
so that's what I'm getting to. So here's
Okay,
where
good.
you may need to look. So once you're inside a transaction, a new button is going to present itself here over to the right-hand side. It's itty bitty. I'm not sure why they made it so minuscule, but you're going to lose it. So I'm going to go over it again and again and try to reiterate that this is where the good stuff lives, right in here. You're going to click this legacy button, and now what we're looking at is any document that was fully ratified and fully signed in rDocs and is now here for your purposes. You can add these documents into a transaction. So let's say you've got a buyer that you worked with last year, and now they're going to sell something and buy something else. And their buyer brokerage agreement lives in rDocs. You can go to this legacy button and you should be able to browse right to it. And again, in here, you can, let's see here, you can use this filter, and you can filter it by address. You can filter by the name of the person that you're looking for. You can even, I think you can also move these around as well. And these are just going to be PDFs. These are not going to be smart forms, okay? So let's say you know that you're looking for something in a particular street address. And I'm just going to do just one that I see here at a glance. I see she's got an address in here called McCoy. As soon as I begin to type characters, it's going to grab anything that fits. And so everything from McCoy Street has now just popped right up into this little list because they all match. So if she's going to work with this person again, she could browse in here, even like a seller's disclosure might be handy to find again. If you're going to be selling something that you sold to someone in the past. So this, and I want to reiterate this because this is something that I think you may, I just want to make sure that your expectations are clear. If you created rDoc tiles and you just had drafts of things and they never actually went anywhere, they didn't have signatures on them, they didn't get fully completed, they will not move over. If it was signed and completed and done, it's going to be on this legacy list. And then you're going to be able to add these things into your transaction. Does anybody have any questions before I move on to the next? Okay, all right. And if you do, I'm also going to try to watch our chat. If you have questions, you can always put them in the chat and either myself or Sandy will try to address that. So I'm going to go back to the main dashboard, and I want to just show you a couple of other things on the dashboard that you may find handy. Again, this is 102. So this is just taking your Remine experience to the next level so that you know a little bit more than you did before. There's a contacts screen, a contacts hyperlink on the main Remine screen. So here's your rDocs screen, but if you go back to the main Remine screen here, you're going to see this thing here on the left that says contacts. You can use this as a place to add your contact information for your clients. Sandy and I have discovered that it doesn't necessarily make it easier when you are creating a transaction because it doesn't appear that every single time this contact information is going to pull over into your transaction. My understanding was that that was how that was supposed to work, and maybe they're going to work on that and work some kinks out. You can add contacts to this screen, and ultimately I believe that they will be able to move over into your transaction screen. If you put in something in the transaction screen, it's not going to move it over into contacts, and that I do know for sure. But Sandy, back me up on this. It seems like sometimes if you have someone in contacts, they show up when you create a transaction, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's correct. Typically, they're going to show up. What I have seen that's still a little glitchy that I think they're working on in the back end is, let's say you add the contact, you've done the purchase and sell agreement, you're now going to send it off for signature when you get to that screen, and we'll be showing that. Sometimes the email address is still missing, even though you have an email address in the contact. So sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. There's no rhyme or reason to it from what I've seen.
Okay, so again, a little glitchy, but ultimately going forward, what we're expecting is that if they're in contacts, they're going to populate automatically when you go to do signatures and when you go to add contacts into your transactions. Okay, other thing I want to talk about here too is back in our docs, and let's go back right onto our main screen here. And I'm going to go back into Docs Plus. Okay, so on your left-hand menu of Docs Plus, there is an item here called Package Library. You can make packages for yourself. just by clicking on this and starting a new package. And then you go in and you can select any documents that you want to have in that package. You give the package a name, and then you're just going to, I'm going to give you an example here. We're going to call this Remine 102 test package, okay? And then I'm going to use this button to add content, and I'm going to search for what it is that I'm looking for. And let's say that I know I am going to be doing a certain kind of property. Let's say I'm working in a subdivision in DeKalb, and I know that I'm going to need that DeKalb plumbing disclosure a couple of times. I can even just do a quick search for the word. And when you're searching on this screen, I have noticed that it sometimes takes a while for this information to populate. You have to be patient with it. It's not one of these things where as soon as you start typing, it's going to automatically show up. You just got to give it a second or two to recognize, and then it should yield some results at that point. So I'm going to select my DeKalb plumbing disclosure, and it's added in here into my little package. And then let's just add a couple of other things as well. And let's say that this is going to be primarily for listings. I'm going to look for anything that has to do with listing, and I'm going to start with my exclusive seller listing agreement. And again, I'm just randomly picking out some forms that I can add in just to show you how to build one of these packages. And there are a lot of reasons why you might want to build your own package. As soon as you select them, it's going to put them down into the second screen on the My Selections. And then you're going to click Next. Here's your little package that you've created, and you're going to click Done. Okay, so on this screen, you can create a package. You're also going to see packages that have been created by Remax around Atlanta. There's been some confusion from a couple of people who have gone to the package library, looked at these packages, and they see what says read only. And what that means is that you can't change the package. When you import the forms into your transaction, they will be able to be manipulated and you will be able to edit those, but you just can't add or subtract things to what already exists in a package that's been created by the brokerage. So I wanted to also make that clear because I think there's been some question about that. I had some calls come up where people were like, this says that it's read only. How come I can't use this package library? In order to actually use the package library, you're going to start in your transaction. So let's go back down here and let's get into Kevin. You're going to add a form. And then the second tab here says Packages. And when you click on Packages, again, give it a second because it takes a while sometimes for this information to load. What appears is all of the packages that are available to you. Everything that's at your disposal. You'll see that the Remine 102 test package that we just created is there, the seller package, the buyer package, and then also this Remax Around Atlanta package. Hey, that's super handy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. And as a matter of fact, it's a good idea to browse to this package every time because what it contains is the buyer brokerage agreement that has the specific special stipulation in it that Remax Around Atlanta requires that you include. So you save yourself a step if you go ahead and browse to this package. And if there's underneath the big filing cabinet is individual packages that you can select. And you'll see here in the second column that it shows you how many items are contained inside each package. So let's again start with this buyer brokerage agreement package. I'm going to select it. And then as soon as I select it, bam, the tree opens up and I see everything that's on the menu and I can select what it is that I want and I can ignore the things that are not applicable. But if you use this package, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this and we'll delete this one just because we know there's already one here in Susan's file. I am going, once I've selected the actual individual document and I've got a couple of layers of tree here, the main filing cabinet, the file that I just opened, and then underneath that, the individual documents. I'm going to select what I want. And then when you scroll down, you're going to see that it's under here in the My Selections box. And then I'm going to click Next. And it's going to add it. And it's going to add it at the top. When I click on it, because I already have this information here for my people, it's already going to automatically add it to the form. I want to take a look here and just confirm that I'm seeing this. The special stipulation is already there, and that's going to save you time. So if at the beginning of creating these transactions, you first browse to the Remax Around Atlanta package, you'll be able to have these forms that are specifically tailored to what we are requiring at the firm. Okay. And again, you start in your transaction and you pull those forms in. You don't want to start in the package library and try to get them into your file. It's the other way around. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to the main drag. And I'm going to get rid of this. I'm just going to select it over here, touch my 3-dot menu, select delete. It's going to ask me, are you sure? And I'm going to say, I am sure. And then it's going to delete it. Okay. Another thing that also exists on your main Remine Docs Plus side menu is a clause library. You can create your own clauses, and you can also add clauses that you know you're going to use a lot. So you have a My Clauses screen, and then if you look at more groups, you'll see that there's also already existing a Remax Around Atlanta clause library. This is the special stipulation that I was just speaking of. So let's say, for instance, you decided that you were just going to add things quickly, and then you're like, oh yeah, I've got to make sure that I add that clause. Well, again, you're going to start in your transaction and pull the information in. You're not going to start in the clause library and go the other way. So now that you're inside your transaction, let's see, let's get back into Kevin. And I'm going to add that form again. But this time, I'm just going to add a random buyer brokerage agreement. Let that populate. Count to 10. There we go. All right. Here's my exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. It adds it in the My Selection section. I'm going to click on Next. I'm going to add it in here. And now, because I've just added this out of the main generic library, that clause is, here we go. The clause is not there, but I can put it there, and I can put it there easily. I'm just going to click on this. Now, you've got two options on this screen. You can create a new clause and save it to the library from here, or you can add clauses that are already existing in the library. And this is pretty darn cool because it saves you a lot of money, and it also means you are not drafting your own clauses. Someone has already done that for you, and the language is spot on to what it needs to be. So I'm going to go back in here to the Remax Around Atlanta clause library, and you'll notice that as soon as I clicked on Add Clause, all of these libraries popped up, and I just browsed to the one that I was looking for. Here's our BBA special stip. You can preview it if you just want to see what it says, which is pretty handy before you add it into your special stipulation section. That's the one I want. So I'm going to go back to clauses. It's selected. I'm going to click on Done. And there it is. And the cool thing about this particular function, I think, is this. This text is editable. All you've got to do to edit the text is put your cursor in here. And there are certain clauses where you have to edit it. You've got to add a date. You have to add a number of days. You have to add a cure, if you will, for something inside a clause. So you just put your cursor inside the text, area next to where you want to edit it, type it in, and you can manipulate this text just like you were using a Word pad or a Word document or writing an email. When you're done, when you're ready to save it, you're just going to click on this little save button and it's there. Now, when you go to send this form or print this form or send this form for signatures, they are not going to see this box. They're not going to see all these blue lines and all these options here. It's just going to look like text. Okay? And if you ultimately decide, hey, this isn't what I need, you can also delete it. Proceed. I'm also going to show you the other options that are available to you in addition to just seeing that RMAA clause. You've got the Georgia Association of Realtors Clause Library at your fingertips. And they are nicely subdivided by topic. However, if you know what it is that you're looking for, let's say that you are looking for a clause that has something to do with a septic tank. You can type your keyword. Again, give it a minute to think.
I think you have an extra C in there.
I
Alexis.
do. Hey, thanks for that. Appreciate you. The critical thing is that you spell your words correct. Am I right now? There we go. Thank you, Sandy. No, I was like, it shouldn't take that long. And then I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay, here we go. So now you have all of the clauses that have anything to do with anything having septic in it because it matches that word. A good lesson. Make sure that you spell things correctly. And if you don't see what you're looking for, go back and check your spelling because it may be why it's not coming up. So now I can pick the one that I want and it's going to add right in there and then I'll just manipulate it however it needs to be and boom, I'm done. So it's going to save you a lot of time. Okay, there is one other thing that I want to just address because I know that some people have had some issues with this. Oh, and let's go back in here and let's delete that. Okay, because he's already signed one and he doesn't need it and it has nothing to do with septic. So I've had a couple of people contact me and say, I loaded a PDF, I uploaded it into my transaction, I tried to manipulate it, and once I tried to change it, everything went haywire. Sometimes when you get PDFs that have any kind of encryption on there or that have any live active fields, like maybe you've gotten something from the office of a builder where you can actually type into it, or maybe it's something that is from an attorney's office where they have a little bit of extra encryption on it. It just seems to be that if you try to load these into transactions, they don't always perform the way you expect. There's a couple of things that you can do. I would first try to take that PDF that you have that has those live active fields and print it into a cute PDF writer and flatten it, and then upload it into your transaction after you have removed the ability to manipulate it. If that's too complicated, and trust me, I know, you're like, I don't want to have to learn how to do anything else. Here's your easy workaround. If you get a PDF from someone and it doesn't appear to be working well, print it, scan it back in, make the fields live that you need, and go on from there. It will save you time in the long run. I know that it seems tedious, but for whatever reason, if you have these two elements together, your PDF that has any kind of encryption or any kind of extra layers of signature or places to fill things in, they just don't work well in Remine. It's probably, again, something that's a little bit glitchy, it's a little bit buggy, and I'm hoping that going forward, ultimately, they will fix these sorts of things. And so you shouldn't have these kinds of issues going forward. So that is it for my portion here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm gonna invite anyone who cares to to either put questions in the chat or to unmute themselves, raise their hand. Anybody? Okay. All right. Well, I am going to turn it over to Sandy.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Pam, go ahead.
Is anybody else having problems? A lot of when I use it and send the forms to my clients to sign, a lot of them are going into spam. A lot of it's coming into spam.
Interesting. So here's the other thing that I would recommend. When you send something to your client to sign, change that subject line and put something in this. Make sure that your subject line isn't the thing that is triggering a direct route into spam. I have noticed that there are people have said this seems to keep winding up in junk or spam or not being delivered.
Right.
The other thing that you can do as far as that goes as well is to make sure that if it winds up in your client's spam the first time, and have them check it, especially the first time you send them something, add them as a safe sender. Have your client add the sending domain as a safe sender, and then going forward, when you get other things from, when they receive other signature requests or document notifications, they should be able to come through.
The problem with that, a lot of my clients are older and some of them are not computer literate, so it is challenging.
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. And the other thing that I find extremely challenging is, hey, in the good old days, you used to be able to email it to yourself and then email it to them, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of a bummer that we can't really do that anymore, but I'm hoping that enough people are going to say, I want to be able to email it to myself and then email it to my clients who aren't tech savvy. And hopefully someone will listen to us and, you know, hear our cries of vengeance. Any other questions? All right, let's hear from Sandy. Sandy's going to talk about creating folders and organizing transactions. She's going to take us into a transaction and show us some best practices.
Hello, everyone. All right. I am not as well organized, I don't feel like, as Alexis, so bear with me on this first time of teaching via Zoom. Oh, I can't hear you, Alexis.
I'm sorry. I unshared my screen, so you can go ahead and you can share yours. And I'm also going to get out of Susan's file.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Share screen. Host disable participant screen sharing. So I have a pop-up, Alexis, that says host disable participant screen sharing.
Yep. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I am going to make you the host.
Oh.
So now you are the host and I'm just a peon, and you can change that back to me at some point.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's try this now. All right. Okay, hopefully everyone can see Remine. Please let me know if you cannot. Again, thank you, Susan, for letting me impersonate you today. Before I jump into the piece that Alexis and I had determined that I would cover, which is organization, just some tips on recommendations on what you can do to maybe make your life a little easy, I do want to show you one thing in the form library. If you click on the Remax Around Atlanta items, you'll see that we have actually been able to turn some of the required documents from the brokerage, like the affiliated business arrangement and under contract processing form and your wiring fraud, all of those are now interactive forms and are smart forms, so that when you're in a transaction, if you go to the form library, then you'll have the ability to upload those, and then they're interactive versus the old way when they were just a PDF. So just FYI. Okay, so if I am on my screen and you're seeing all of your transactions, one of the reasons I asked Susan to let me impersonate her today is, as I've been helping her with some of her contract to close items, once she goes under a binding contract, I dove in here yesterday after she sent me a contract to work on, and I noticed that she went binding with Kevin on this property, which is the one that we're currently working with. However, I also noticed that Kevin was previously the person who made an offer on Leeds Court, and he's also the person who is going to be selling Bubbling Creek. One of the things that Remine is going to do is it is going to, as you add transactions, it is going to drop everything here on your main screen. As you start to have more transactions, this home screen is going to be way cluttered eventually. So for example, as you close an item and a transaction is closed and you're no longer dealing with that client, unless you move it off your home screen, it is never going to go away. You physically have to do that. So one of the things that I'm recommending, I'm a huge folder structure person, be it in Microsoft or Google or Dropbox, it's all very similar. I'm a huge folder person. So I recommended to Susan that we take Kevin, since he is binding on this contract. What I want to do is go into him. I'm going to create a folder. I want to call it the property address of which he is binding. If you use your little dots up here on your screen, you can go back a screen if you need to get back to where you want to go. So what I have done is I have created a folder called Binding Contract. I'm going to select all of these documents that pertain to this particular property address. I'm going to click on the Move button. Again, Remine is very slow, so you have to count to 10 and have a little bit of patience. It will eventually pull up your folder structure. I'm going to click on Kevin. It's going to say, okay. Tell me where you want to put these documents at. I'm going to select the folder that I want to move it in. Up here in the blue bar, it's saying, okay, you want to move all of these selected checkboxes now to this particular folder. I'm going to click Done. And they're all now in this one folder that I have created. But now what I want to do is Kevin has previously had other transactions. For example, remember I said he was previously with Leeds Court. That was an offer he submitted, and it did not go through to bonding. So I also want to move that. Again, I'm just highlighting the checkbox, clicking on my move tool. Again, counting to 10, maybe 15 sometimes. I want to move this into Kevin's folder, and I want to click Done. So now when I click on Kevin, I can see that Leeds Court has a folder in there, and if I were to click on Leeds Court, all of the previous documents were in there that pertain to that particular transaction. One of the things that I'm probably going to want to do, though, for my peace of mind, because my OCD, prefers to see things a certain way, I probably want to rename this. So I'm going to do a select checkbox, click on the little 3 dots, and click Rename. And I probably want to put something over here that says Offer Denied, or whatever makes sense to you. Just so at a glance, you know kind of what happened with that transaction. If it closed, you could put it as closed, and then you could change its status over here. That's the other thing that I would probably recommend is once you do this folder, that's really not an active folder anymore. So I would probably change its status to inactive at a quick glance. That way you know you really don't need to do anything else with that folder. And I know this is a lot, and I'll ask, you can ask questions and I can go through this again and I can help on a personal level. But remember I said that Kevin was also going to be selling property and she's already created this transaction for him. I'm also going to move Bubbling Creek. We have two here. I'm not real sure why, but I'm going to clean that up later. But we're going to do the same thing with those. We're going to move those. Again, we're going to count to 10 and we're going to move those to Kevin. And so now, as you see on your main transaction folder, when we first logged in, there was a lot of folders here with various things. Now you've just got Kevin here. And then once you click within Kevin, you can see certain things. For Bubbling Creek, since this is a listing, I would probably, again, rename that. I also am very much a person of upper lower case, but again, it just depends on your preference on what you want to have these look like in your folder structure. They will always, for Remine, they're always going to initially be created based on how the listing agent entered them into FMLS as a whole. So if they entered them in all caps, they're going to come over in all caps, etc. One of the other things that it's up to you if you wanted to do, you could break your folder structure down even a little more. And I know Kevin has already done all his buyer brokerage docs, and our office is going to require those. And I may be working with him on more transactions, and we'll need those and really don't want to dig around for them. So you may want to go into the folder where those items are housed and move them to the buyer brokerage folder. So you can see in the very first offer that she had him, sent him and signed all the required documents that we are required. Again, count to 10, so sorry. So now at an easy glance, I'm going to go back into Kevin's folder. We've got his listing. We've got an offer that was denied. We've got his binding contract, but we've also easily got his buyer brokerage docs, which gets turned into paperless pipeline, which is going to lead me into showing you the easiest way that I have found to download documents, to get them turned in or to send them off in an email. Typically, when you've got a purchase and offer agreement, you're going to have a bunch of pages. You can easily open up your docs. So for the office, we all know that we have to turn in our buyer brokerage and the wiring fraud and the affiliated business disclosure. And let me just make sure that everything's over here. So what I am, oh, sorry, I've got to move my toolbox over here. So what I am going to do now that I'm on the document, I'm going to click download. It's going to pop up, okay, what all would you like to download? I'm going to pop up the documents that are required for the brokerage as it relates to your buyer brokerage. So I've selected those 4. Again, we probably really want to see this buyer brokerage first so that when we submit it to the office, they can easily see the name. If you use your mouse and click that, you can drag and drop and move those around as you like. And sometimes this is glitchy and sometimes it will work. So hold that thought, just joking. And of course, while we want it to work, it's not going to work. Okay, well, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Normally, you would be able to drag and drop right there. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. However, I'm just going to easily show you the one PDF page. So there's your 4 documents required for the brokerage. I'm going to click continue. It's going to say, what would you like to do to this file? Do you want to send it to a zip file to your computer? Do you want to do one PDF to your computer? Do you want to do one PDF to this folder? And it's up to you. Typically, I do the one PDF to my computer and then I upload to paperless. So when you click next, it's literally going to say, what do you want to download it as? I'm going to see if it's going to let me drag and drop here. And it is, yay. So that my buyer brokerage is first. I'm going to click next. It's going to think about it. It tells you your export is being prepared up here. And then if you notice down on the bottom left-hand navigation, it has now created one PDF, all 12 pages, and you are ready to upload your doc to paperless for the brokerage. I'm going to close that screen out. And show you, I think I'm going to show you how to change the order when you're sending to the clients for signature. I'm not sure. I know a couple of people have had trouble with that as it related to sending it in the correct order. So I'm just going to create a quick test folder here for myself. I'm going to use one of the pre-built packages that Remax Around Atlanta has, maybe not.
You could use our test package, maybe our Remine 102 test
Yeah, I
package.
started to say, let me try not that one. Do you remember, did you put a purchase and sell in there? It doesn't matter. I can use this one. I'm going to select all of this one, just like we're going to pretend that all these docs apply to one transaction. After I have signed everything, we're going to assume that I have gone through here. I have signed everything. So when I go to hit send, it is going to pop us up possibly with a bunch of error messages. So as you can see in, if you have not already received this warnings and alerts message in Remind, see how these are in red? Typically your red means before you hit send, those really need to be completed. If you see ones in yellow, those are just recommended. But the red ones you really want to pay particular attention to and go back to your doc. As we know, I didn't fill any of this out. I didn't sign it. I haven't signed anything yet. I'm just doing blank forms, so I'm going to bypass this. So when you get to the document screen, before you type in your message that you're going to send to your client, remember Alexis mentioned about one of the things about things going into your spam filter is based on this subject line. Remine automatically defaults with a subject line that looks like that. So I would probably change that to something else because that could be cueing what is catching as a spam filter. So definitely make sure you do that.
I think that phrase has shared documents with you, especially the word shared, appears in a lot of these like spam things where people try to send you links to click on. So it's probably why that gets caught.
Yes, and I'm going back here, I'm sorry. My drag and drop is not working today for some reason. So again, very glitchy, but typically you would be able to drag and drop these. But you can also drag and drop from this last screen. So you literally just hover over them, select your mouse, and move them to the order that you want them to appear before you hit send. So typically you would have your, for example, your purchase and sale agreement, then your conventional loan exhibit, or your whatever your loan type is, whatever other exhibits you may have. Probably the best way, since the other screen seems to be glitchy, is just dragging and dropping in this screen, since it seems to work. Changing your subject line, typing in your message. Once you do all of that, you'll be able to hit send. Since I didn't give myself any role or include an email address, none of those chat boxes are here. So that's just it as a snippet of how to get those into an order so that it appears correctly when they receive it and it reads correctly. Let's see. One of the other things that I just want to touch on that Alexis also mentioned was the customization of packages and forms. The office, yes, has created your buyer brokerage packages for you. But I would also recommend, if you have standard packages that you use for most clients, I would really suggest creating your own, and I'm going to show you why. So Susan's been playing around in here and doing some test files. So I'm going to create one and label it with my name on there, but it's also going to be one that if she chooses to use it later, we can rename it. So I'm going to create the buyer brokerage package. Oh, I cannot see today. Sorry, the sun is in my eyes. You know what? Actually, I think it will let me. Nope, just checking. I'm like, I thought it would let me. I want to do some customization to this package that the brokerage has already created for us. And just so you all know, when you're looking at these pre-built packages, these are forms that the brokers recommend that you're submitting to your clients. They're not all required. Some of them are required by the brokerage, but some of them are not. They're just highly recommended. So I'm going to select them all since the brokerage. I can't get my screen to go. What is going on here? I can't get to my box. Because what I would like to do, again, I like for my buyer brokerage to be the first form in my package. So this is the same package that the brokerage had already created for you, but I want to go ahead and fill out some of the fields. So I'm going to click on customize, because this is going to pertain just to me, Susan Reno. What you can go ahead and do is click independent contractor, that our brokerage does not do dual agency. You're going to go ahead and select your commission that typically your clients are paying. You can, again, fill these out as they pertain to you. And because I selected the brokerage package, it's already got that special step in there. But I'm also, for my, particularly for our clients, I'm going to give them that, the lead-based paint exhibit, the pamphlet, which I'm going to just make a brief mention on. I'm also giving them the mold pamphlet. and the radon pamphlet, 1, 4, 7, 8. Number 13 is the required pamphlet. Just so you all know, Protect Yourself When Buying Home. That is the one that is required by the brokerage. And again, all of these others are just recommended. But I'm going to go ahead. I've got all of that filled out. So now I have it the way that I typically would send to clients, and I'm going to click Done. And it's going to think a minute. I'm going to click Done. So now, anytime I have a new client, and remember I had created myself a test folder, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click Forms. I'm going to go to My Packages. There's the one I just created. I want all of those docs. I'm going to click Next. And then as you can see, everything that we had saved in our package is still there. So the only thing that I'm really having to do is go in and put in the dates of what I want to work with, and then also whoever I'm working with. Again, I never filled out my personal information. So again, you're just filling out the, specific information that pertains currently right now. I'm going to work with Susan for a whole 2 weeks. Yes. I know she can have me under a contract in 2 weeks and close. And then this document's now ready to send off. And then what you would also then do is just select all your other documents that you want to send as a part of the package. It keeps it in the same order, and you're now ready to send the buyer brokerage, and you've saved a little bit of time because you've already selected some of those check boxes. And you can do that for anything. If you know that you have a form that you do the same thing repetitively, you can go in there and customize each form, and that way it's already done for you. The same thing would go for special steps. If you know you personally use the same clauses, special steps, for the majority of your buyers, what you could do is create a folder for, buyer special steps. And then label it as you would like. So for example, I know that Susan, there's 2 that she typically likes to use in all of her contracts, and I had already pulled those out. So I'm going to drop them into the clause. I'm going to hit save. And again, this is just on a down day if you have time to go in and build out your clauses, because I'm going to show you what that looks like as you're working on I'm going to go find my purchase and sale agreement, because I sadly never remember these F numbers. Susan's working on an offer for me. You scroll down to your special steps area. Again, Alexis touched on this earlier when she was showing you the buyer brokerage, But again, same concept. If you've built your own personal clauses, it's going to take a second to pop up. I'm going to select that I want those. And instead of having to retype every single one, they're there. I think as an overview, I think that was all I was going to cover, was just basic organization and highlighting on some customizations. But I am open to any questions, concerns, help. I don't know how to get.
I was going to mention one little thing too, and I think a lot of people, especially if you want to go back into the package library for a second, there's another way that if you go to add new package, you click on add a new package. I think that there's even a way that you can clone an existing package. Am I wrong on that? And like, let's say you knew you wanted to take everything from the RMAA buyer package and put it in yours and then add the extra things into it. But like, for instance, for a listing package, you can go in, you can fill in all of your personal contact information, your brokerage information, your affiliation, your board affiliation, and have that there every single time. What a time saver. Like, if you know that you always recommend a 180-day post-listing period or whatever it happens to be, bam, that's always in there. Lisa's got another question in the chat, Sandy. She says, when
I'm sorry, I can't see my chat. I can't see my chat box, sorry.
You go roll up to the top and you should see it, but I'm just going to read these questions out. It says, when Remine has made adjustments for assistants to send documents for review, will we be notified? We are staying on top of them with that, because Sandy and I especially, have been kind of going back and forth as to how challenging it is if you have an assistant to work in concert with them, because of the way that it's, you know, hard to get notifications cross team. If they don't notify you, we definitely will, and we're going to continue to stay on top of that. And, you know, Remine will probably have like little alert blurbs when they make updates to their program and to their system. So we'll watch for that. And Janice asks, are we going to go over getting signatures on the documents? We can walk through that. I think we glossed over that for this session just because we had covered it in the 101. But if you wanted to talk about a little bit how to put a signature on a document, we could certainly do that. If anyone, you know, wants to walk through that again. Maybe Sandy, you still have control of the screen if you just want to show how to obtain an electronic signature on a document. And then I think also too, some people, if you have something that you've uploaded, for instance, a PDF of something, like a PDF of a builder contract or a PDF of a pre-qual letter, maybe, or something, whatever it happens to be that might need an initial or a signature. If you upload it as a PDF, then you can drag and drop those things on there from that PDF screen menu. So there's so many little tips and tools. We could have another. Anyway, I'm going to give it back to you, Sandy.
Okay, sure. I mean, I can show, I mean, basically you just need to be on your document. You're going to hit send. You're going to hit this documents that you want to send for signature. And if you notice down at the bottom, it already has your name. So really all you want to do is make sure that it's populated. So on this one, I'll use this one as an example for converting to a PDF, since we are missing a date. So here it shows my name and I'm going to sign it, but it looks like maybe the brokerage is asking for a date field as well. When they converted this to a smart form, they somehow the date field did not apparently get converted over. So I will point that out to them. Oh, no, it's there. It's just not populating. So yeah, it's already got a signing date there. So all you're going to do is hit send, continue. I'm going to select my email address, and I would type the message in to please sign, or whatever you want to send to your clients. It has me selected. And then I would hit send for signature. Now, one of the things, as Alexis was mentioning, is as it relates to PDFs. So let me see if I possibly have, don't have just a blank document. Here, I'm just going to grab these driving directions. We're going to pretend like we need to sign some driving directions. So it has uploaded my document. You'll notice where it says PDF right here. You can tell from looking at these documents, if it's got all the little lines, that's a smart form, so it's going to have some pre-populated fields. If it's a PDF, it will not have any pre-populated fields. You actually have to insert your documents, your signature lines or your initial spots. So the PDF is here. You will see that it did recognize, for whatever reason, sometimes it will recognize that a PDF needs signature, sometimes it will not. If you ever do not see this toolbar and it is a PDF, there's going to be a convert to PDF button over here, and I can go back and show you that. But you would just click on that button and then you would have this toolbar. But in this scenario, it actually is there. So we're going to say that I need to initial where I'm going for closing to this closing attorney. So all you're going to do is click on whichever tool you want to use. So initial, you're going to select the person that needs to sign or initial, and then it's going to give you your box, and you'll just drop it in there. It's then going to say, okay, do you need a date and time? Do you not need a date and time? And you can either say yes you do or no you don't, and then just click done. And then from there you would again just click on your send. Type me a message, change your subject line, and hit the send button, and it would go out for signature. Did that make sense? Was I covering what we needed, Janice? I don't know what I've done with
Sorry,
all
I was on mute. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I can't find my chat box, nor can I find my screen of people. So I can't see anybody, and I don't know what I've done here.
Sandy, if you roll up to the top
I see now.
there
Yep,
you
now
go.
I see,
That little
now I
thing
see my
kinda-
people. Yep,
there
now I
you
see my people. I
And
can't
if
see
you
my
wanna-
chat box, but are there any other questions on anything that Alexis and I could cover?
And I'm going to look in the chat and just see if I see anything else that's popping up over here. But I think that's pretty much covered it. And I think really the most important is for these programs, you're going to learn by doing. And you're going to learn by making mistakes sometimes. And that's okay. We are all learning together, and we're all here to help you. So if at any point you're setting up you want to explore making your own packages, or you'd really like to be able to set some of these background things up so that it's easier for you to, organize, call on us. We are always glad to help, to walk you through things. And we are recording the session today, so it'll be available for review if that's helpful for you.
If I could just mention one thing real quick that I would also recommend, I am struggling with these bars. This came out of a contracts class. I don't know if you were in the contracts class the other day, but they discussed the lead-based paint exhibit, of which it is once again going to be changing for 2021. But one of the things that I wanted to point out that will not be changing is where it says buyer tenant has received copies of all information, if any, listed above. And then also the one below, which is B, that the buyer tenant has read and understands the above lead warning statement and has received the pamphlet. you might want to consider when you're doing your buyer brokerage agreements, just going ahead and including that lead-based paint exhibit. That way, when you come time to go into a contract, you know that you've already submitted these brochures and you can just have your clients initial them after the LBP has been given to you, after the seller has completed it. Otherwise, what it's indicating is your buyer should have received this lead-based paint exhibit, the brochure prior to signing this as exhibit. So that's just one thing that you may want to pay particular attention to and maybe just incorporate into your brochures. And I think that's it for me.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Well, I appreciate you all. Thanks for joining us today. And if anyone has any questions, just please feel free to reach out to us at any time, and we're going to be glad to help. Sandy, you are the host, and so you have to end the meeting. But thanks, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you. I will listen as I figure out how.
If you stop sharing your screen,
Yep,
there you go, and then down to the right.
Like sure. Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.